I am giving away 5% pieces of myself to the main event coming up next month at the World Series of Poker. All you have to do to enter is go to clpgiveaway.com, clpgiveaway.com, and the link is in the description, and enter. There are several things that you can do to get additional entries, including being a CLP subscriber, but check it out for your chance to win a 5% piece of my main event action. All right, Brian, you are up first, sir. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, Brian. You got a hand for us?
Yes, I do.
All right. So where is this one played out of?
This is at Bay 101.
Bay 101. Okay, so Bay 101. Okay.
Hmm.
And what's the game size?
This is 235 for the $20 straddle. So it's the
Two.
deep stack game.
Okay, so 235 with a $20 straddle. 235 $20 straddle. And how deep are you?
5.1K effective.
Wow. Okay, so this is the biggest game. This is usually the biggest game that run. Sometimes they run something bigger, right? Like they'll run, but for the most part, this is the biggest game, like on a daily basis that they run, right?
Yeah, they do have an uncapped game, but
Right.
not on Saturdays.
Right. It's only on certain. It's only on certain days, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So 2, 3, 5, 10, $20 straddle, and 5.1K effective. Okay.
Okay, so we're eight-handed, and the max buy-in is 5K, by the way. So under the gun limps in for $20. He's got about 5K.
Okay.
This $20 limp, like this player has limped in previously in the past, and he's shown down like ace, like unsuited weak aces in the past. So although it's an under the guns limp, I didn't really think too much about it.
Okay.
He also bought him for 3K, so um, he tends to be a little bit weaker. Oh, it folds around to me on the button,
Okay. So here on the button. Okay.
and I have ace of spades, 10 of clubs.
Ace of spades, 10 of clubs. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it would be too weak to just call here, and I think I have to raise, so I made it 120.
Yeah. I mean, I would.
But
I would think so too.
yeah, so the standard open is to 60, and with the limper, it's usually like 80 or 100. So I made a little sizing mistake by going too high to 120. Um, so and it was actually a misclick. I meant to make it 100, but I put an extra chip there.
Okay. So 120.
Mhm. And then the small blind, he three bets to 400.
And he
Um,
has you covered, or 51. Whatever. 5.1K effective, right?
I had him covered, but yeah, we're both 5.1 effective.
Okay. So he goes to 400. Okay.
Yeah, and the under the gun player folds.
All right. So fold. And you call?
Yeah. Actually, four bet. And so let me just give you a little bit of background on this small blind player. So he joined about an hour ago. He bought in for the max 5K. He seems to be pretty aggressive and like a pretty solid recreational player. He got it in with queens with the four bet. He lost to aces and he didn't seem phased at all. So he was a tough opponent, I would say. And he has three bet, four bet, pre-flop multiple times in the past. So I know that he can be a little bit wide here, especially in this configuration. It's like it's optimal for like squeezing, right? So, and he's only an hour in, and he's directly to my left, and so I kind of wanted to set the tone that like I can't be three bet easily. I It's completely okay to fold here. Unsuited ace 10, it's completely okay to fold, but I just wanted to mix it up and just I made it $1,200.
So you go to 1,200. So Kiro, 1,200. Now, it's kind of interesting here, too, because, I mean, obviously you guys are kind of deep in up to 1,200, so 3x 4 bet. Because I don't, I know that there's like a limp in here, so it kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. But when you take a look at this, let me just ask you a question. What if there was no limp? And you had just like, say, made it, I don't know what the standard open was, like 60 or 70. Okay. Just imagine that for a second, right? So you make it 60 or 70, right? Against a $20 trial, just opening the button, right? And then the small blind, instead of going like, 400, like went to say like 250. Okay. So like 4x. What do you do with ace 10 off there in that configuration on the button versus small blind?
I think I would still four bet. Like I don't really like to play unsuited ace 10 um, against these strong opponents, even if I'm in position. I'd rather just muck or just raise, to be
See,
honest.
I mean, I don't know. I wholeheartedly disagree with you. I don't know what exactly, necessarily the solution is. Again, like necessarily like an optimal type of scenario with this exact setup. But I will say, especially if somebody is V-pipping as a three bet or fold, coming off of the small blind, and again, I'm just imagining like button versus small blind. I actually think it's a continue. I actually think it is a continue, and I've actually seen good players continue all the way down to like king jack off here. But I mean, if he's three bet or folding every single hand from the small blind, how first of all you have to sort of figure out what is his three betting frequency out of the small blind when against a button open, and how is ace 10 off doing against that range. Personally, I would have done a lot of calling here. I would have ignored the limp, and I don't know what the problem is here with necessarily calling in position with ace 10 off. Now obviously the stack size is going to get a little bit wanky because of all this other stuff that's gone down, but I think it's a little bit on kind of the tight side if you're playing against somebody who is you know, who is basically like V-pipping like a three bet or fold type of strategy here.
Yeah, in retrospect, I think I agree. I think it's completely fine to play in position against like this kind of villain. So
All right, so you four bet to 1200. Okay.
yeah, and he thinks for a little bit. He looked a little bit stunned, so just like nonverbal tell, but he took like 20 seconds. I thought he was going to jam, but he just called.
So obviously if he were to jam, then you would be out of there, right? So call. All right, so now we're at like what, close to 2500, something like that in the pot, right?
20, I have 2430.
Okay, so 2430 in the pot, okay.
Yep. And so now the flop comes out eight of spades,
Mhm.
seven of spades,
Mhm.
five of clubs.
Okay. So again, you're the four better. So you've got a little bit of backdoor stuff going on here with the ace of spades here. And obviously you've got like a backdoor straight draw. It's interesting in a four bet pot because you are supposed to kind of see bet a lot. And usually only like the ones that are like the most connected do we find some checks. But although this one really shouldn't be, even though it's connected, it's much, much different than like a single race pot or even a three bet pot for that matter, because a lot of these middling cards really shouldn't be represented, I wouldn't think. So, I wouldn't hate just, making a standard C bet here if I assume it's going to get checked to you.
Yes.
Okay, so it
He
gets
does
checked.
check
Uh-huh.
pretty quickly, and I actually didn't mind this board. I have the ace of spades, and there's two spades on the board. He shouldn't really have too many sets here. Like I think when he's facing a four bet, he should be folding, pocket eights, pocket sevens, things like that. Maybe if he's sticky, he'll call with like 8-7. But I wasn't too concerned with this board, so I decided to just down bet to 600.
So, by the way, too, I washed over a little bit the four bet sizing pre-flop. Some people in the live chat saying go a little bit smaller here. I went to 3x. I mean, yeah, you probably at this stack size, you probably could have got trying to look at this like as a pure kind of bluffing type of scenario. You probably could have gone away with going smaller, maybe to 1,000 or something like that. I didn't mean to wash over that, but okay. So check, and here we go 600. Okay.
Yeah, and I think this sizing I'm okay with because I have the ace of spades, a lot of his natural check raises are eliminated by that fact. He doesn't have as many nut flush draws or any nut flush draws.
Uh huh.
And I can still have aces and kings, and I would, basically call off if he were to check raise all in. So I think from his perspective, like jamming here would be suicidal unless he had like a really strong hand how somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I chose a quarter pot size bet.
Okay.
And he calls.
Okay. So small blind calls, and now we're at 3630, and of course we started with 5100 effective, so we've put in 18. So wow, you only have like 3300 left, huh? Like just under a pot size bet left.
Yeah, that was also the reason why I went to 600. Just trying to like make one SPR on the turn.
Yeah.
I think I can barrel on a lot of turns like any spade, um, maybe like a 9 or something. Like I have some possibilities here.
Yeah.
Anyways, the turn comes out the ace of diamonds, so we make a pair.
Interesting. Okay.
And he checks.
Uh-huh.
And at this point, at the time, I was thinking, okay, this pot is already bloated. and I've made a pair, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I checked, but I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really interesting because I think it could go back to what you had said on the flop where you have the ace of spades, so he can't really continue. He doesn't even have those one card continues with like ace queen with the ace of spades, ace king with the ace of spades, something like that. So sure, he could have like ace king maybe with the king of spades, ace queen maybe with the queen of spades, but there's two aces accounted for, so there's not a ton of combos left available. A lot of times when you see this like reflected, when you have a hand that you think is good and might actually need some protection with about one SPR, I gotta be honest with you, I think I can just get on board with jamming here on the turn, unless you wanted to play some sort of like kind of dink and dunk where, because it's one SPR, so sometimes you could get tricky with it and go really really small again to try to get like them to really be like put in a difficult spot with like tens, jacks, queens. I'm talking about really small, maybe like, I mean, even if you went 1,000 and then he called, the pot would be like what 55 and he'd have 23 left. So it's interesting, like maybe you could go quarter to 1/3 and really have him try to piece off with like a lot of those hands and put him in a really really sort of difficult spot, and you could go quarter 1/3 and then check back the river. So I think there's two options here. You could do that. I think you could also jam and possibly make it, because right now, even still, like even four betting here just inherently is a little bit sort of polar anyways, and he might think that you're trying to like rep this card. The more I kind of think about this one though, I think with one SPR, I think you can sort of get away with a small bet. Like I think that might be a more efficient. I actually don't like checking though. And it's a combination of, I don't know how much more value you're going to get on the river, and there's just so many connected cards that I think your value and your protection should be had now here on the turn.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think of all the options, checking is probably the weakest play I can make here. And it sets me up for a lot of mistakes on the river, especially on a lot of different like scary cards on the river.
Yeah.
I don't know about raising small here, just because like if I get check raised here, then again like I'm forced to make a difficult decision. So I do think jamming is probably what I concluded after the fact to be like the best play here.
You think jamming is the best play? You don't like small bets? I mean, do you think that do you think because there's going to be frequency of him calling with like jacks, queens, kings, because it looks like you're bluffing?
I think if I raise small and he raises on top,
you bet small, right?
Yeah, yeah. If I bet small and then he raises on top, or he calls and lead jams river, I'm just stuck in a really difficult position where I have to make a tough decision. So I think just jam, try to get called by worse, maybe some flush draws, straight draws, maybe some like curious kings or queens, and then just get it in right now instead of having to make a difficult decision. So I think jamming, I would have liked to jam here.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth with it. I mean, like I said, I think that I think we both agree, and it seems like the people in the live chat agree, that checking is probably not the play. It's really just a question of, do you want to go like 1/3 again, or do you want to jam? It's pretty, if you, the only problem that I see sometimes though too with, it's just like, man, if it folds out everything, you know what I'm saying? Like if it just folds out everything, because if you have value if your four betting range, right, is going to be like heavy towards value of in the form of, obviously aces or ace king, like those are like the big time value hands that you have here. The ace is such a bad card for this guy if he's got like kings or queens, that I wonder if he just folds those out, and I wonder if you can have some value there, like value had, some from some of the inferior hands by betting small. But okay, so but it sounds like you check back, right?
Yeah, I checked.
Okay, so I heard check behind. Okay.
So the pot is still 36-30.
Yep.
And the river is the jack of hearts.
Jack of hearts. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then villain basically thinks for about 10 seconds and then jams into me.
So small blind bets 3.3K. And obviously Hero is going to be getting about 2-1, just over 2-1, right? Boy, I got to tell you, man. Jeez. Oh, I had my thoughts about this too. Like in the email. I mean, I think at first when I was reading, I think I read this hand in LA actually when I was in my hotel. I was like, man, it's kind of hard to like play this hand in this manner in a 4-bet pot, check back turn when you're not really checking back like a ton, and then fold the river if the guy jams. And then on the flip side to this, to that argument is like we have to find the bluffs. I still kind of have a hard time though folding here the way that you played this hand. Now, so obviously he could take you to town here, I guess, with like, ace king, right? Maybe even ace queen. Just, I mean, even somehow if he has ace queen suited here and he called, like, say he's got like ace queen of clubs here, something like that, where he called the small bet on the flop. I mean, if you play this as a check back on turn, I mean, I would think that ace queen should be like kind of a clear cut value bet here. When your hand sort of like leans towards like kings, queens, although I don't know, maybe sometimes you got jacks or something like that. So, you could get value owned here. On the flip side though, remember, because you bet so small and because it is a wide configuration, I think this is really, I always try to stress this on the flagship podcast quite a bit, that it all comes down to what your bet size is on the flop, especially in these multi-bet scenarios. And because it's a wide configuration anyways, although your 4-bet sizing was kind of large, if you find that he's going to be peeling with a lot of these Broadway draws, like a lot of like sort of Broadway types of hands, and maybe even some front door side too stuff, but like any type of like backdoor club Broadway types of hands here, then he very well might arrive here with a much wider range than you expect because you gave him such a good price on the flop. So, if you were deeper and you had bet larger on the flop, like something like 2/3, close to pot on a different board or something like that, and then you check back an ace turn and then you arrived here and the guy jammed, I actually think that would be a much harder spot to find a call, especially with ace 10. But when you down bet so much and he's going to show up with a higher volume of hands here that have nothing on the river after you check back the turn, I kind of find it hard to fold here. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's pretty well said. I think when I bet 600 on the flop, I was thinking that like hands like ace queen, king queen, like these hands, like these would all just fold, and which is just a fine outcome. I think ace queen not suited, those should just probably folding pre-flop anyways. So really, like when I looked at his value hands, I think he could have pocket jacks for like a rivered set. Maybe he has 9-10 if he decided to be sticky pre-flop. I didn't really give him like sets here, like flop sets, because I think a lot of those would raise on the flop, given how connected and draw heavy the board is. So I think his like real value hands consist of set of jacks, one combo of aces if he decided to flat call the 4-bet. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
I mean, listen, if you can find a ratio of value, right, that's less than 2-1, then it's a call, right? Because you only have to be good 1 or 3 times. What did you do?
Yeah, so I ended up calling.
Okay, and the reveal?
Yeah, he said you're good, and I showed my ace 10 and he won.
Okay. I mean, again, I think the most important thing to take away, and I cannot stress it enough. By the way, somebody made it actually. I don't know if you said this, caller, what you said, but Magical 55 said, the dude's like checking back the turn. Oh, he said you don't want to play like a difficult spot, yet you 4-bet pre with ace 10 off here in the spot, which is kind of an interesting one. I mean, it's kind of an interesting take. Again, yeah, it might be a little bit of wide defend pre-flop. I just do wonder about how often you are going to call, like if we just totally ignore the limp, like button open versus small blind with ace 10 offsuit. But the most important part of this is the fact that obviously this is even in a 4-bet pot, but even in a 3-bet pot, if anyone who's watching this video down bets severely the flop and then checks back the turn, you have to understand that your opponent's going to end up with a larger volume of hands that want to bluff the river, making it so that you're going to have to bluff catch more. And there isn't probably a better natural bluff catch than actually hitting top pair on the turn and checking it back, especially when you might do a lot of that with like kings and queens because of the 4-bet pre. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.